Hey everybody, welcome to the Curious is Better podcast. I'm Craig Lamb with Invative, and today I have a great one. I'm here with Steve Greenspon, who just exited from Honey Can Do. And you and I have spoken before. You have a great story. First of all, I want to congratulate you for your exit. I want to thank you for coming. And I've already asked you, but I'm going to ask you again. Now that you've exited, what have you been doing with your time, man?
Craig, first, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you here. It's been a ride, so a little bit of time on the transition to to the new ownership. Getting through that, I did not want to stay on for a long period of time, so it's been great in that regard. I've been reading books for the first time in decades, which I've loved. Getting together with friends and relatives, one of those things where you always say, like, I like hanging out with you. We need to get together. Let's do it. But nothing ever happens. And now I've got the opportunity to do it, and I'm loving life in that regard. I've joined some advisory boards, and I'm enjoying that. Just using my experience and contacts and helping others in my industry and related industries and enjoying
That's
that.
awesome.
So
Well,
it's
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 well
been fun.
deserved because people might not know this. Why don't you could tell people what Honey Can Do is and what you do, but also let them know when you launched because it's a great backstory.
Honey Can Do was we became a leading brand and provider within the home storage and organization space, providing things like shelving units and coat hangers, drying racks, and laundry hampers and related products, selling through retailers, so Walmart, Amazon, Wayfair, Home Depot, Menards, Target, et cetera, were all among our retail partners in that regard. Launched the company in 2007.
What happened in 2008?
So as you know, that's when the recession hit. Of course, I wasn't aware that we were going to be having a monstrous recession. As a startup, I think in some ways it helped us. Of course, yeah, you always have challenges with debt financing, but we were able to
Mhm.
work through that. I think in some ways, folks were maybe investing more in the homes and looking for home products. It created opportunities, certainly, as other companies that were in the space struggled a little bit. And certainly retailers were looking for good values for their consumers, and we were able to help with that and get invited to reviews that maybe they wouldn't be having if there wasn't a recession going on. So I'll never know the real answer because we're such a small player to have a study done, but
Yeah, but we spoke about this before too, though. Like you did some analysis. Getting into storage uh, and that whole area was very strategic for you. You did some analysis, right? I
so
mean, you
um, I wish I could tell you that I had a bunch of MBAs sitting around and creating a formal case study and everything else. But I did spend a lot of time looking at what category to be in. I knew the platform of the company in the sense of having our own designs and working with outsourced manufacturing in Asia primarily, selling through the retail channel as opposed to direct to consumer. And then also, I really wanted to get heavily involved in e-commerce, which in 2007, within our category, there was a huge white space, and that's how we found some opportunities there. But I spent a lot of time informally studying a lot of different categories, everything from pool toys and accessories to hand tools to garden gnomes and other accessories. And I kept coming back to storage and organization and kind of the non-electric laundry care. And I really enjoyed the space. I felt like I could become an expert in the space in a fairly short amount of time. I didn't think that any of the existing players were doing a good job in the sense the packaging could be improved. The pricing wasn't very strong. The designs weren't real exciting out there, and there was no brand name in the space. So I certainly felt like we could make some damage fairly quickly there.
That's great. And again, I'm recalling some of the stuff we've already spoken about, but because I think it speaks to the journey and the trajectory of your company. Because like I'm a tech nerd, right? So you and I were talking about different maturities and the levels of tech and stuff like that. And you started with a prize. to get into that for your ERP. But then you went to NetSuite, and then remind me, did you go to Softian after that? Remind me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, talk about that. Like,
So as a startup, we knew that from the beginning that we wanted to be a big company dealing with big customers, the Walmarts and the Targets and the Amazons, and we needed a level of sophistication, even though we were a startup. We started out with a provider called Apprise, which is now called Aptian ERP, and they were a good solution for many years. It was kind of an all-in-one. They had an integrated EDI solution. They had a number of installations for companies like ours selling to retailers. They had a built-in warehouse management system, accounting, etc. They were good at each of those areas, but they weren't great at them. And plus, it was a hosted solution at our building. And after a certain point of time, going from 2007 forwarding 15, 16 years, we had a lot of downtime that they couldn't be explained. There were security issues with hosting it on site. We didn't have the level of sophistication, especially in the warehouse, that we wanted or needed. And the EDI just became a little bit too, I guess, not as smooth as we needed it to be with the number of
and
transactions
you
we
didn't have a
were.
traditional tech team either, right? I mean, like you had a couple of people that knew what they could do, and then you were kind of like stuck, right? So you clouded, like you went to
Yeah,
the
exactly. So yeah, we ended up having a strong head of IT at the
right.
end, but prior to that, we just it wasn't an area that we felt uh, um, strongly. Let me rephrase that. It wasn't an area that we invested where we should have invested, and we
Sure,
couldn't find the right personnel until the end there.
sure.
But yeah, so then we transitioned to NetSuite, which is an Oracle product, a tremendous ERP that has all sorts of outside producers. It's almost like an app store, if I could use that analogy, with
Yep.
all of these folks saying, "Hey, we have a great solution for accounts payable, and that could be added easily to your NetSuite, or for a warehouse management system, or for really, and for EDI, and because NetSuite has so many integrations, we were able to do those fairly easily. And then Softian was our add-on tier one WMS system.
Right. One of the things I love about your story, like when we first talked, and we're a custom engineering company, and you're like, yeah, I steer aware of the custom stuff. I would rather tailor my processes to make sure that I'm optimizing my software versus having my software accommodate my evolving processes. Which there's nothing wrong with that to say, but it's almost like it's the dichotomy of it. Usually, the ego of that business owner is so strong, where it's just like, this is the way we do it. If that doesn't do it that way, we're going to make it do it that way, and that's our bread and butter, and it has its place. But you made a very deliberate decision where you're like, nope, I'm going to optimize what I have, and if I have to adjust my processes to make sure I'm fully optimizing these tools, I will do that. Can you talk about what helped you make that decision? And maybe it was as simple as like, we're not teching, so this is where we're going to go. But I feel like there was more into it. Or
Yeah,
was that?
that's I always found that whenever I made things more complicated than they needed to be was where I started to get into a little bit of trouble. And as you said, I'm humble enough to know that, out of the tens of thousands of companies that do something similar to what Honey Can Do does, in the sense of making products, subcontracting them to outside manufacturing, distributing them, and providing them to retailers. It's at the surface, it's a fairly simple thing, and we don't need to have custom processes to do that. We had many, many, many other ways of differentiating ourselves from competitors and providing great products and great values to consumers and retailers. But really, the core of it. I wasn't comfortable, and I didn't think we needed to do, change the software to fit our needs. Whereas, we were taking talking to the software provider, talking to our integration partners, and kind of taking their advice on best practices. And we reviewed, as part of the transition, we reviewed every single process that we do in the company, whether it be um, each of our warehouse processes of receiving and picking and packing and doing the cycle counting, to our payables process, our remittance process and cash application,
You
our new
brought someone in
product
though,
process.
Steve, right? You brought someone in though, right? Did you bring consultants in to do that discovery? Yeah,
Absolutely. So we hired one integrator to help with the ERP, and then a different integrator to help with the WMS. And yeah, and we did kind of both solutions at the same time, because what we were turning off our Apti and our ERP at the time, so we couldn't turn on Softy on without turning on NetSuite, and vice versa. So
yeah.
so we absolutely had to turn them on at the same time.
Yeah, and I bet that proved to be a smart decision because doing your own discovery and giving yourself your own report cards is just, it's very difficult, right? There's inherent biases, like, and what if you're doing it, you're like, of course this is right. This is how I've done it for the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But,
Yep.
and then if you're evaluating an ERP on the other side of it, it's like, what's the distance between the way I'm doing it and the way it's done here, right? To be able to evaluate an ERP that would suit you best, you know?
And this is for not just for our company, but for just about any company. Their ERP is the company. With that's if you wake up the day after the integration and it doesn't work, you're out of business.
Uh-huh.
So this was a situation where I didn't mind doing belts and suspenders, and making sure that it went smoothly. Of course,
Sure.
like literally every other integration that I've ever heard about, it was over budget. It took longer than planned. We thought that we built in enough fluff in there to keep that from happening, but we still found a way to do it, like every other story that I've heard about integrations. But
Well,
the
it's
bottom
just
line is,
difficult to be able to cross every T and dot every I because some of them are hidden so deep in layering, and again, you do a risk calculation like everybody else. And you think
yeah.
that your risk calculation is based on, well, if I have this tribal knowledge, I think I got everything covered, but it's a moving, elusive target. But yeah, did you learn anything specifically that you would think was repeatable or a really interesting lesson learned that you could share from working with consultants in evaluating technologies for the company? Like,
So things that we did, which I thought were great, were we had subject matter experts from every single department in the company, and we
uh-huh.
had regular meetings involving them, and we literally stood over people's shoulders and went through every single process, and the testing that was involved in this was such a monstrous portion of the integration. Just everybody, that's you need to test everything that you do each day, and we put fake data in the test environment, and we made sure that people were doing it and reporting it, and whether it was successful or not successful, we made sure that we had that feedback, because heaven forbid we turn it live and we can't pay bills, we can't reconcile our cash, we can't ship an order. It's all incredibly impactful to the company. So we
yeah,
spent
and
a
you can't
lot of
you can't
time doing
shortcut that stuff. It's
exactly.
there must have been a really solid culture with inside your operational areas of your organization because you know how unbelievably painstaking and painful it is to do UATs, user acceptance testing for the UATs on, it's bad data. You have to cycle it all the way through for process on bad data and then verify bad data. Where the stuff that you're normally like, I know that client, I know that invoice, I know that, and you know what I mean? In your head, there's like some baseline that you can kind of refer to. But when you're doing skunk works to do some implementation testing, it's difficult. So kudos to the team, right? I mean, to be able
Yeah,
to go through that. I mean, I know it went
and that
well.
goes back. Sorry, I was just going to say it goes back to our hiring and the culture of the company, to have people that cared about the company and the success of the company to do that.
Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, your culture was strong, right? Turnover was low, culture was strong. You had everybody that was working together to help with the scale. So, I mean, that's rare, and that I think that speaks volumes to the company. After implementation, because now you've evolved into I'm going to call it like an enterprise ERP. What did you see straight away? Did you see labor savings? Did you see like less errors in process flow? Where were your marks? Like, where were you like, yep, this is where my return sits?
Yeah, absolutely. So, efficiency, no question about it, was labor savings, and folks, now even if we couldn't necessarily eliminate a role, folks had more time to do other things in the company,
Uh-huh.
which is very helpful in that regard. But processes that might that might take an hour, as an example, in the past, now it could be done in 15 minutes. Cash reconciliation is something that and with doing e-commerce with literally thousands and thousands of transactions a day,
Yeah.
we're able to cut that down significantly. So that was a huge part of it. The warehouse labor savings was unbelievable. Being able to have in a tier one versus what we had before, just unbelievable what we were able to do there. The accuracy, no question about it. Fewer mistakes, fewer touch points. In that regard, it was easier to use. The data was more secure by moving to a cloud environment as opposed to
Mhm.
hosting. Able to sleep a little bit better at night. The ability to access. We had an office in Shanghai, and their ability to access our ERP without issues was also
Mhm.
much greater as well by having that environment. And then also by being able to have the accessibility of kind of best in class add-on solutions that we could go after was a game changer as well. Appian had far fewer installations than NetSuite does, so there weren't as many outside SaaS providers making things for Appian as there are for NetSuite. So,
Right. The
we
library was just, yes, all right. That makes perfect sense. You and I spoke before too about, I had asked you to, is like AI, because I get all these clients who are like, Craig, I need to do something with AI. Where do you want to put this and stuff? And you started tinkering with AI before your exit. Can you talk about where you decided to start
Yeah, of
and what you
course.
ended up
And
doing?
yeah, and I talk to people as well that just want to do AI for the sake of doing AI. They
Yeah.
read all these articles and watch all the videos. Oh, I'm missing something. I got to do it. But first, find the problem, and then AI could be a solution for it. So
Exactly right. And then what's that problem worth? Like, do the
yeah,
math. Just don't do it for the sake of doing it. But you picked one very specifically.
yeah, exactly. So like cash reconciliation with the thousands of orders was always a
Mhm.
pain point for us, and there was no way through our old ERP to automate it. So we used RPA, and we had what I would call robots. Just at night, we would give them the process. They would go into customer portals, find the remittance information, and then apply it within our ERP towards the open invoices and do the double checks and everything else. And that was an absolute time saver and money saver as well, doing that. The other thing that we used it for, which was phenomenal, was creating content for our products. This was an area because we were so heavy on e-commerce selling through our retailers. We needed photos and copy and all these things. And because of the diversity of the retailers that we were selling through, the digital assets needed to be different. So, like
Uh-huh.
Home Depot, we're selling the shelving unit, and we needed it propped, shown in a garage. This is an example, shown
Oh,
in a
I know.
garage.
We had
A
some scenario based picture where Walmart
Yep,
might have something a little bit different, where it's like, what's in the box, like stuff like that.
exactly. So our creative team was able to create these, amazing images using AI. Whereas in the past, we had a studio set up in our facility, and we would go out and get props based on who the customer was, and we would set up different flooring and different backgrounds on the wall, and have different people or things in
Mhm.
there. And now it could be just show this shelving unit with propped with hardware items, shown in a masculine garage
Right.
with a guy in jeans next to it,
That's
and
right.
on poop. And then you would just adjust it that way, and it would take seconds. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Hey, so, I wanted to ask you before too. It's like when it came time to exit and sell, and even evaluating beyond the capex multiplier. Do you think that your tech stack had any influence, like where you were and where you evolved, had any influence on um, the success of the exit?
Yeah, the answer is unequivocally yes, but I don't know how to value it, and I can't quantify it.
Hmm.
But there's no question that the companies evaluating the company saw a tremendous amount of value of having recently integrated a new ERP system and a WMS that was working, that's a well-known platform, that worked well, and where we could show them the efficiencies. And of course, we also sold them on the future efficiencies and opportunities out there as well with
Yeah,
that. But yeah,
it's one of
we had,
those.
and
It's
I
one of
was
those
going to
things
say,
almost like landscaping when you're selling your house, right? You're
yep,
like, I don't know what the value of it was, but my curb appeal is really good. But I always say like you're missing it because I think that the software is like it's doing all of that dirt grunt work that used to be the manual processes, but now we're so used to it being automated. And it's like, well, how well are you to implement that? It goes back to culture and the people you have and things like that. And so now you can't put a number on, you can't multiply. It's like, well, they go, I'll do EBITDA or sales or something like that, where it's got a number next to it, right? But I do think it has an impact. But like you, I couldn't quantify it. You
yeah,
can
exactly.
kind of
In
put
the
it in
deal book,
chest.
yep. In the deal book that the investment banker created, there was a specific slide devoted exclusively towards the tech stack. And we spent a lot of time talking about that with the buyers. And they liked that it was ready to go, as opposed to being something where, like, oh, they haven't updated this in 10 years, and this is something we're going to need to do, and it's going to cost X amount, and we're going to have to take that out of the proposal and everything else. There's no question that it was a big plus.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, I want to go wrap up question for you too. Now that you've stepped back, is there anything that you would have done differently, and or what are you excited about for tomorrow?
Oh boy. So yeah, that would be the ultimate if I had a time machine and go back and of course, if you're lucky, as more time goes by, you get smarter, and I spent a lot of time evaluating my mistakes over time and redoing them in my head, and I should have zigged when instead I zagged. But there's no question. A lot of it has to do with there were times where I should have followed my gut instead of following the advice of others, and there were certainly times where I should have followed the advice of others instead of following my gut. So,
Yeah,
and knowing which time to do which is the key to many situations. So,
I bet.
in that regard, I certainly would have made different decisions. Some of them major, some of them minor, but
What are
overall,
you,
I look back.
what are you amped up about the future?
So the
You excited?
future, I'm looking forward to just enjoying time. I feel like I'm young enough. I want to continue to contribute. I
Mhm.
have a tremendous amount of experience, within the industry and experience that I could use outside of the industry. That would be a shame to not use that to help others out there. Certainly looking at investment opportunities and just joining, continuing to join boards and using my expertise in that way. And I'm certainly looking forward to that and meeting people and just getting out there and mentoring and teaching is certainly something that I enjoy doing as well.
And occasionally taking a nap. Occasionally.
Occasionally taking a nice nap and enjoying summer in Chicago while I can and reading a
Yeah,
book.
there
So
you go.
absolutely.
Listen, Steve, thanks so much for joining. I think this is great. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to figure out how to reach you because you have so much experience from end to end. So I thank you for joining very, very much. And thanks to everybody for
Yep.
listening to the Curious and Better podcast. What's that, Steve? Did I just interrupt you? I'm
Appreciate it.
sorry. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. If somebody ever wants to get a hold of me, I'm honored by that, and
Oh,
they should
great.
reach out at any time.
Great. You will get them, I'm sure. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you, Craig. It's been an honor.